Good morning, podcast. Man, we're in for a treat this morning, Monday morning, and we're going to talk about getting rid of clutter and being more organized and how it can help your health. So, my seniors, pay attention to this one. You can't move a house into a a one bedroom apartment. I have never seen it work, and I don't think it does work. So, Liz is going to help us really. It's not just so much as organizing, but it's a health concern because if you got too much clutter, that's not good for your health. So, Liz, introduce who you are, what you do, and who you serve, and we'll get into the podcast after that.
Well, thank you, Pete. I'm excited to share with your audience. I have had multiple years of experience with seniors and moving and move management. And even helping my own mother. My mother, a lot of people have multiple moves. So the big family house, she then moved to a smaller house, not that small, but then she moved to a 2-bedroom apartment at a place where she could stay for the rest of her life. Then from the 2-bedroom apartment, that was when I had to get involved to move her into assisted living. And it was a 1-bedroom suite. And in that instance, I used another organizing company that specializes in senior moves.
Yeah.
So first of all, it was my mother, and she was a little hesitant to work with me. Secondly,
Sure.
There are skills that senior move managers have that I don't necessarily excel in. So it's called the National Association of Senior and Specialty Move Managers. I call it NASSMM, NASSMM. And the one that I chose was accredited and certified, had years of experience. And they did things like measure the furniture that she wanted to help her decide what she wanted to take and actually take measurements and do a floor plan and show her on the floor plan what will fit and what won't fit.
Yeah. It's so important. Living here, most people, this is a independent living, but people move here to be near like their kids and grandkids. So they'll move and they have their house, and then they have to kind of do what you just talked about, is now figure out what are they going to take, what fits. If I've seen it once, I've seen it a number of times. The mover comes and the couch goes back because it doesn't fit. And it's like, you can't hire kids that don't know how to move and they say, hey, look, can we get the grandkids to move us? It may sound like a good idea. You can save a couple dollars, but let me tell you, if they drop your precious whatever and it breaks, you're not going to ask your grandkids to reimburse you. So it's gone. And they're not going to understand the dynamics of fitting your prized possessions into your new apartment, because that's just not, they don't live that world. So I always, when I see a moving truck and they've hired the U-Haul guy, the truck, and I see young kids, I'm going, man, that's a disaster ready to happen. So what would you've been through it, so you've touched that world with your mom. What would I always like to think of 3 things. If my seniors could take home 3 things from our time on the podcast and benefit them to make better choices when they're putting this together, what would you say the first choice or the first tip you could give my seniors?
Start earlier than you think you need to. It is every decision that you make is going to wear you down. And decision making is like a muscle. You can lift a weight. How many times can you lift that weight? And some of us are stronger than others. Some of us are better at decision making than others. But at some point you will wear down. Barbara Hemphill is my mentor. She's a mutual friend of ours, and she trademarked the phrase, clutter is postponed decisions.
Mm-hmm.
And typically people are postponing these decisions because they're tiring. It's tiring to make these decisions. And so if you pace yourself out and give yourself a longer time frame to make the decisions of what you're keeping and what you're letting go of, that is, kind of like my number one tip. And I have seen it over and over again. I had a client I'd been working with for years, organizing their home. They decided to move. They did not hire me for move management. A lot of times people want to save a little money,
Mm-hmm.
and they ended up moving all this stuff that wasn't going to fit, that they weren't going to keep. So they paid the movers to move it. They boxed it up in a hurry because they had to be out. In this case, they had rented and then they were buying a house. They had to be out on a certain day. And then they hire me on the other end because, oops, nothing fits. We can't even use the rooms. Now, the house they moved into is fairly large, but they couldn't use rooms like they wanted to. They had no room for an office, and the attic was packed. And so they're paying to declutter, to get rid of things. I took truckloads to auctions of stuff that they just wasn't going to fit in their kitchen. For example, china and crystal that they didn't need 3 patterns,
Mm-hmm.
3 sets.
Yeah.
So, and some of the stuff, the way they packed it very quickly, got damaged. And so then it can't be kept or sold. So they were postponing the decisions.
Mm-hmm.
And in this case, they wanted the attic job, they wanted me to push it out to May. And I said, this was in March. I'm like, why can't we book it April? And they're like, I don't want to make those decisions. They were just wanting to push it off to May as if it would get any better. And I said,
Yeah.
I'm not doing an attic in May. I'm doing it in April when it's still cool in
Yes.
North Carolina.
Yes.
So yeah, and I work physically in person with my clients in their homes and offices. I'm in the college town of Davidson, which is just north of Charlotte.
Mm-hmm.
But I also work virtually. There are a lot of ways to work virtually and help people all over the globe.
Yeah, when I moved into here, I had a friend who's moved about a half a dozen times. But the one thing I didn't think about was the bed to take. And it ended up being the wrong bed, too high. It took me about 2 months to get them back to switch it out and take the dresser out, which didn't fit. But I didn't think through or get measured that. And as a result, I'm there with the wrong bed, too much clutter for a couple months until I got it removed and the right one put in. But to your point, if you think about it and you plan on it, you avoid not only aggravation and pain, it's going to save you money in the long run. But we don't think of it as, oh, hey, look, the grandson said he'll move us, so let's let him move us. And we hire somebody who's never done it before. And then we wonder why the stress is like super high and doesn't work. And it's like we created our own mess by not working with a professional. So I'm in agreement with it. And I see it all the time here. What would you say? And I love, let me go back to that first point when you said, mom when you're dealing with family, they know you as family. They don't think of you as a professional at what you do. So you decided to hire a professional that's certified. And I'm big on that. I mean, I totally agree with that, is get the best person that knows that space. So when you hired that person, did you just go to that organization and look for somebody to match the skills that you needed for your mom?
Your audience can go to the NA, National Association of Senior and Specialty Move Managers, NASSMM.com. They can find local ones, and I recommend that they choose one that is accredited and certified, and then talk to them and see how much experience they have.
Mm-hmm.
I happen to be colleagues with, we trade business back and forth I don't like to do big packing jobs. I send them to them. I do not do the packing, the coordinating, the logistics, supervising move day. I've done it for my clients, but they are better at it.
Mhm.
The aging in place consultations, that is their specialty. So yes, I already knew them. I knew that they were the top in my area. But your audience can go to that national association and find somebody who is qualified, and you don't have to use all their services. You can kind of pick and
Right.
choose which things you want to use. I do move management. I have moving tips on the resource page of my website. My website's
Mhm.
davidsonorganizing.com. It
Mhm.
is a 13-page download. It is free. You don't even have to enter your email address. It'll ask you for your email address, but you don't have to enter it. It's free. And it even includes uh, over a dozen questions to ask your moving company. One of those is talking about insurance, because most people don't realize that the insurance only covers 60 cents per pound.
Oh, you
So
know,
lots of
no,
questions to ask the
yes.
movers to get clarity on. It doesn't mean you'll have a perfect move job, but it helps to at least have interviewed several. And I make a recommendation on a nationwide company that I've had good success with. Doesn't mean you might not like them in your area, but they even have great packing videos on how to pack books, how to pack various items that are very helpful. So, all that, I mean, as I said, I can only get so much in today, but they can go to my website and get those moving
Yeah.
tips.
And I had no idea. I didn't think about, because I know Barbara's involvement since a young age, since she was in New York and started the business, that the organization that she has put together in the productivity space. But when you just said the aging in place, I mean, I have a podcast, Aging in Place. So maybe coming back on that, and we'll give our viewers a heads up on really that organization, because I think it's a team effort, like you just described. Match your needs with the right people, and you know we can always. I know Brendan Burchard said this, and Barbara actually had me go to his seminar years ago out in San Francisco. But he said, just because you can do something doesn't mean you should do it. So, can you pack boxes? Yes. Should you pack boxes? No. So there's so much to it. And he also said common sense is not always common practice. So you kind of think this is a big move that you're making. So plan on it. Don't haphazardly wait to the last minute and just throw it together, because you're just asking for trouble and aggravation. And especially if you're moving your mom, you got to plan these things out and work with your kids to not just hire anybody that they can think of because they want to save $100, and then all of a sudden they break the fine china, and that's worth a lot more than $100. So Liz, I'll put you on the spot. If you'll come back on the Aging in Place podcast, we'll dig deeper into that organization and how partnering locally with them. I think that makes a whole lot of sense. So, and I was going to do this. You see where this is red? I was going to match it with your eyes and make it Duke blue, but I didn't. So next time we will, okay? Because I think matching the description with your eyes will help our viewers to really be able to listen better. So tell us our second tip. What would you say would be important for our viewers to understand about this decluttering process and move process?
So with my mother, as we talked on our last time we talked about the fact that both of my parents were top amateur golfers and had tons of trophies.
Hmm.
There is a kind of a saying in the organizing world in decluttering that if everything is important, then nothing is important. And so I think it's getting clarity on what has value, what is important. And there are some hidden treasures in homes that those of us who specialize in helping people sell their items of
Hmm.
value I'm a founding member of the keysguild.com or the Keys Guild. And on my website, davidsonorganizing.com, there is a whole page called Collectibles Advising that talks about what I do to help clients in person as well as virtually with their treasures. And so people have hidden treasures. And an example was this other organizing company that specializes in senior moves. They brought jewelry for me to sort. It covered an entire conference room table. It was a massive collection. And their client was expecting about $300 in value. Most of it was costume, but I found a fair amount of gold jewelry, 14 karat, 18 karat gold jewelry. This was all unwanted jewelry. She was getting older, didn't want any of it. And I ended up paying the client of the other organizing company $5,800.
Whoa.
That is a
300 to 58. That's a big gap.
$5,800. She had no idea. Gold has gone up 30%, 20 to 30% in the last maybe 6 months, especially in the last few months. So it's a great time to reach out to me if you have unwanted gold.
Okay.
But it is a treasure. A lot of times the family doesn't know the value of it and they need a trusted resource. The other would be silver. The younger generation doesn't want to polish it. And I work with people to help them sell their silver in a wide variety of ways. I will almost always be able to get somebody more money for their gold and their silver than they can on their own. It's not the local jewelry store that says, hey, we buy gold. It's not that they're dishonest. It's just they have a huge overhead. And I don't. I work from home. I work virtually. And I use the exact same resources that the jewelry stores use. If it's a broken gold chain, I will take it directly to the same refineries that the jewelry stores use. I have all sorts through the Keys Guild. I have all sorts of exclusive access to experts and those that will pay more for my clients. So Antique Cupboard, for example, is a place to sell your silver. Antique Cupboard pays me far more than they pay the general public. So helping people navigate with the silver and the jewelry is probably the top hidden treasures. Your audience can go to my website under the resources. They can download and find out all 10 of my top recommended hidden treasures. They can also see a list of the things that are top 10 that are probably not having much value.
Yeah. I see a common theme between your first two tips is make sure you have a expert professional to help you. These are things that if you know, and it's kind of like you don't know what you don't know until you really discover that there is organizations out there and people like yourself that can shine light on a situation that you had no idea. All you're doing is you think $300 and you put it on a conference table, and all of a sudden you walk away with $5,800. That's more than just a little bit of money, but it's knowing that the true value of things and finding a trusted person that can help you through that. And I totally agree, because you see buy gold and silver in places that probably, they're around military bases, they're around different places that people don't necessarily think through, and they just go in there and then they're throwing this stuff in there, and people have that overhead. I mean, it's no cheap renting a brick and mortar. It's expensive. So they have to make a profit. They can't be in business just to break even. They have to pay their rent. So I like the fact that you can step in and give them the most for their money, most value, and be able to help them navigate. Because we have 100,000 seniors in our county, and there's always that 80-20 where 20% are struggling. They can't get that. They need these dollars. So if you're in that situation where maybe you didn't plan and you need to get the most out of your resources or your things that you've gathered over the years, don't go and just don't think this is worth something, because you may find out, just like you said, Liz, 5,800 is a big difference between that and 300. So I'm going to let you get to the third one because I love the topic. I mean, I
You
geek out.
teed it right up. It is my heart for seniors is to avoid being scammed. I want them to pick trusted resources, to vet who they're trusting. An example would be estate sale and tag sale companies. They are unregulated in North Carolina. They are probably, I think they're unregulated in other places. And just for clarification, an estate sale is when the owner has passed away. A tag sale is when they're alive and they're downsizing. In my area, they typically will run them on a Saturday and Sunday. They will mark everything with a price. If it doesn't sell on Saturday, it's half off on Sunday. They clear the house out. In my area, the company takes 40% and pays the client 60%. They are an excellent resource if they are trusted, but they are not regulated. And so you want to make sure that the one you choose is a reputable one. An example is I had a client who moved from Atlanta to Charlotte, and in Atlanta he used a tag sale, and they stole items from him.
Wow.
They didn't put things of value, some of the things in value, in the auction, and he felt that some items also were priced way too low. They were basically giving them away. They didn't do their research. And even if you do find a reputable one, there are categories of items that don't belong in a tag sale. Typically, this is jewelry and silver. I will pay more because you're paying that 40% commission for jewelry and silver. You can sell them elsewhere and people will take a smaller commission. I mean, mine is 20% typically, or 10% if it's a large amount. Jewelry stores are charging 30 to 50%. That 40% is just too high for jewelry and silver. So I even had a tag estate sale company this morning, drop off a large grocery bag full of silver and jewelry for me to price and pay them on it, because they recognize I'm paying more than they can do better for their client using me than selling it in the tag sale. Auction houses, at least in North Carolina, they are regulated. So you're not having to, they're a little more reputable. But again, there are auction houses that are good for one item, an auction category of items, and then an auction house that won't do well for that. And so knowing, that's kind of what I do, is I know which auction houses will do well with Native American jewelry. In one auction house, it will not do well. In another one, it will. And the other category that I typically see that doesn't belong in a tag sale or auction house is anything that's over $1,000. Maybe furniture is okay, but this will be high-end art. You know, if you pay $10,000 for a piece of art, do not expect that in the local tag sale that someone will appreciate it and be willing to pay. And so I use nationwide auction houses for high-end art. High-end statues, I mean, really unique items that just need a global audience. And so I have access through the Keys Guild to the experts who can help me place where's the best place to sell this. For example, I can text several members of the Antique Roadshow, and they'll get back to me within a day or two. I can reach out to the owners of various auction houses. I have contacts at various auction houses to help me navigate, to figure out how much is this of much value? I was all excited. A colleague had a baseball card signed by Michael Jordan, and they had a story about how Michael Jordan signed it. And I sent the photos off, and it did not authenticate. The signature was not real.
Really?
So I have access to those kind of experts, and that the general public doesn't have. But with that access comes, I feel I can trust them, what kind of information they give me. And so even locally, your seniors want to make sure that they're working with trustworthy people.
Yes, totally. We had not this past Friday, but the Friday before, the Cobb County DA, Brody Flynn, on the show. And he was talking, because I heard him speak at our Family Advocacy Center. One of the biggest problems out there is the scamming of seniors. They're easy because technology is changing so fast. And my friend called me Saturday. I mean, it breaks your heart. They wiped out his savings account because they're good at what they do. And never click on something you don't know. Don't call back a number just because the headline says I have a refund from PayPal from whatever. And so what he's trying to do is provide resources for the seniors to be better prepared, because they are praised to people that's what they do. I mean, hey, we don't live in a perfect society. Not everybody's trying to be your friend. They're trying to take money out of your hands and put it in their hands. And technology is is kind of a window there where they don't understand that when you go on the computer, they can be in your account really fast. And it doesn't take more than a minute for them to empty out your bank account. So talk to professionals, be aware. Just like you said, trusted professionals there's a key word there called trusted. And you want to make sure you're accessing trusted professionals, like to go to you and say, hey, Liz, do you have somebody who can do this? Because you have a reputation in your business that you want to keep. So you're going to make sure your vendors deliver for you, or you're not going to refer anything to them. But if you go on Google and try to find somebody, unless you're in an organization like you talked about, the two organizations, you can't, they police their own people. So you can go to an organization and find a credited person, but just don't find somebody off the cuff and you don't know anything about them and expect that every single time it's going to work. It won't. And there's some horror stories that are out there. So I love that you have covered, man, this is crazy. I had no idea what you were going to talk about this morning. So this is really good. Before we close, I want to encourage my seniors, share this with people that you know are thinking or in the process of getting ready to make that transition in their life. Maybe it's a home into an apartment, whatever, or like you said, a bigger home into a smaller home. Just any transition that you have in your life, you want to partner with professionals, trusted professionals that can hold your hand, and they'll save you money in the long run. I mean, lots of money if you just make the right decisions and find people like you've talked about. So what would we put your number on the screen. So tell our viewers that are listening to it audio, how can they get a hold of you? What is your email address and your website?
Well, my resources on my website are amazing and they're free. DavidsonOrganizing.com. And they can download all sorts of resources. They can schedule a call, and the call is free. We can go from there after we discuss and kind of come up with a plan of how we could work together, or they can just pick my brain for a few, 15 minutes and ask for some advice. I recommend getting clarity about what your values are.
Yes.
And so I have a triangle that is of these values. Is it most important to you to save money and spend the least amount of money? Or do you need to move quickly and I've had clients call me in 2 weeks, they're downsizing because of a medical emergency and they need to move in 2 weeks. That is more of a crisis situation and you want to avoid that. But if that time and getting it done quickly is important to you, you may have to spend more money. Right. For seniors, you talked about packing. It's hard on your back. I mean, I'm 60 years old and I'm very fit, but after a day of packing or unpacking, my back can can be hurt, can hurt. And so, but I'm very fit for a 60-year-old. And I don't recommend that if somebody does have back issues that they do a long packing session.
Yes.
The other value is so sometimes you have to pay more for your health and just your well-being, because moves are a very highly stressed situation. So if you have a lot of stress in your life already, the last thing you want to do is increase your stress you're going to have stress because of the move, but anything you can do to reduce that stress, and just valuing your own mental health and your physical health, I think is important, and realizing you may need to pay a little to reduce your own stress, have somebody manage the logistics, do some of the packing and unpacking, doing those plans, and just kind of also just walking you through this process. As I said, the number one was start far in advance. I mean, I want people to be downloading those moving tips a year in advance to start their plan. And so that way they're not in a crisis. And sometimes people are more open to scammers or people who are less than trustworthy when you're in a hurry. And so if you can not be in a rush, not be in a crisis, that can also help with making sure that you're choosing trusted resources and not just anybody.
Awesome. I want to thank you, Liz, for being with us. I'm taking away a couple words: clarity, planning, and trust. You put those three words together, you have a happy ending. If you leave them out, well, the world can throw you and turn you upside down. So thanks, Liz, for being with us, and encourage our viewers to share this with people. Make them aware that moving is no piece of cake if you don't do it correctly. And you want to make sure that you're planning and doing the things that Liz has shared with you today. So thank you so much, Liz, for being with us.
Thanks, Pete.
Talk
to you later.
Have a wonderful day.